pushing big ideas. I think it starts with that, because if you're doing that, it creates discomfort, because these ideas, right, there's tons of ambiguity, and we have to go change how we work to go pursue those ideas. So bigger ideas, right, that create permission for others to have ideas, and it also creates normalcy around the discomfort which exists. Without that leadership driving the big ideas, companies seek comfort, and the comfort's in the predictability. And I can come in every day, I can look at my analytics dashboards, I can see a problem, I can go attack that problem, right? That's not like doing new things, right? That's comfortable. So I guess the short answer is the leadership, and me as a leader. I have to come in every day and push big ideas.
Welcome to What If with Leslie Grandy. There's a question builders and makers who join large companies need to ask themselves. What does it actually take to stay entrepreneurial inside a company that already works? Not just to tolerate ambiguity, but to seek it out again and again across decades inside the same organization. Most innovation thinking starts from the outside in. A startup disrupts, a new entrant forces a legacy company to respond. But to me, someone who's worked as an innovator inside established brands, the more interesting story is the one happening inside the big company, where someone has chosen to stay precisely because they see it as the better bet. Not because it's comfortable or predictable, but because change happening at scale is exciting and energizing. And because there are the resources to take real swings at genuinely hard problems. In this episode, we explore what it really takes to operate in that space between stability and reinvention. We talk about what it takes to build something new from scratch when the company has existing customers, existing commitments, and existing antibodies to anything that challenges the status quo. We talk about the difference between resilience and adaptability, and why getting both wrong is the most common reason big ideas die slowly inside large organizations. The discussion underscores the importance of clear vision in ensuring autonomous teams can map the value of their innovations to the company's purpose and strategy. And we discuss what it takes for leaders to create cultures where teams are willing to challenge assumptions, survive ambiguity, and keep moving even when early versions fail. We also get into what AI is actually changing for product teams right now and what it isn't. Because if there's one thing this conversation makes clear, it's that vision is not something you can prompt your way into. The hard work of knowing where you're going and why it matters is still a fundamentally human responsibility. My guest has spent his career doing the thing many leaders struggle with, building new businesses inside one of the most established, complex, competitive companies in the industry. My guest, Randall Hounsell, is a decades-long veteran leader at Comcast, where he co-founded the Xfinity mobile business and has spent years thinking about how to build cultures where bold ideas aren't the exception, they're the expectation. I'm so glad you're here for this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to What If with Leslie Grandy. My guest today is Randall Hounsell, a veteran digital product executive who co-founded Xfinity Mobile at Comcast, scaling it to over 5 million subscriber lines. And he's led innovations across connected living, IoT, internet, and digital products. Randall built and led product development at the revolutionary startup StreamStage, which today powers search navigation and voice controls for Comcast X1, Flex, Skyglass, and Xfinity Stream mobile applications. He now serves as a CPO advisory board member and was named a 2026 CPO award winner at Products That Count. Congratulations on that, and welcome to the podcast, Randall. It's great to have you here.
Liz, it's great to be here. That was a little trip down memory lane. Thank you for doing that.
I have followed your career at Comcast for a long time. As I've told you, I'm a Comcast customer, and I've stayed a Comcast customer across all sorts of products that you've introduced and been responsible for. So I'm really delighted to be able to talk to you today about your experience as an intrapreneur at a large company, and also about the innovation perspective that you bring to the job in a large enterprise. So starting with that, Comcast is just this massive organization. And so what is it about the culture of Comcast that made it possible for you to thrive as an intrapreneur over decades there?
You know, I joined here a long time ago. And when I joined, I figured this was like a 2-year stint. It was earlier in my career, and I'll give this a shot. It's a good stepping stone to something. And then I got here. Within about 3 or 4 months, I realized, wait, these people make bets. These people play offense. And in fact, just shortly after I joined the company, they put in a bid to purchase what was then AT&T. Yeah, that was a big moment for me. And I'm like, this is these guys play offense, and the leadership is very forward thinking, bold, taking bets, and that's really kind of been the framework I've been working in. And, I perform well. And when they make bets, they've put me in those positions to go, to go execute on those bets, like Xfinity Mobile. And it's been just a series of bets. And when they make bets, they're making bets on new things, like inside of Comcast. And until the job I'm in now, pretty much most of my career is in doing these new things, like that are kind of outside the core. Even the job I started in, I came in at the earlier stage of building the internet business, and we decided to build our own kind of web services and portal. And we made a bet, and we went into that space, which telcos had never gone into before, to build our own set of services. And so up until the role I'm in now, all of these things have been basically new things that have to be kind of formed from scratch inside of a big company. And it's been awesome. I mean, I love doing that, and it's not for everyone. I mean, which we'll get into. It's hard. It requires a certain personality to do that, and I happen to be, that kind of personality, and also work at a big company, and big companies that often don't attract that kind of personality, because it attracts someone that wants more comfort and predictability, which a big company can offer. But yeah, that's really been my most of my career here has been building new products, new businesses inside of a big company. And that has all led up to about 7 years ago, they asked me to come in and basically run the core of our connectivity products. That's the core: internet and Wi-Fi and mobile and smart home, all those things.
You dropped the bomb, so I have to ask, what is the personality that makes that work? And I ask this with a real personal curiosity, because I'm not that person. Obviously, I've changed jobs. I've worked at different companies in different roles across different industries, but they've been large companies, and my experience has not been one where I've been able to continue to bring that constant stream of innovation inside the same four walls of the same brand. So what is it about your personality? What does it take for someone to do that? Because you called it out, and I've always wondered this personally. What would it take for me to be that person? And I'm just interested in your perspective on the combination of traits and attributes.
A company like Comcast that has a larger portfolio of products and businesses, I mean, it can attract someone that likes predictability. I mean, it's the company. It's going to be hard to fundamentally. I mean, there's a lot of stability to being at a company like Comcast. There's a large portfolio. You're sitting on a network. But the new things, as we're doing new things, it's just very different. You in some cases, I think I have that skill, but in some cases, I'm kind of the last man standing on those projects, because they can be frustrating. They can be ambiguous. The punchline is, it's just like being an entrepreneur. If you're going to do new things in a big company, the number one trait is just grit and to persevere. And it's easy. And like I said, those things clash, because if you're coming to a company because you want comfort and you go work on something that's uncomfortable, you're going to get out of it, right? And I've stuck with those uncomfortable things, and in many cases signed up for them. Like even Xfinity Mobile, when that idea was first formed, the idea of entering a space that has had three players pretty much dominate the space for the past 20 years, it's not an obvious one. I love the idea. I went and jumped in when the chances of success seemed low, and just stuck with it. And in many cases, and I won't get into specifics, but this, and you mentioned Stream Sage, those things, you're constantly facing failure.
Yeah, I love this topic, though, because you as a person might be okay with failure, but you're doing that in a company that also is a public company looking to maintain results and competitive advantage, and balancing sort of a long and short-term horizon in this role adds another pressure that maybe an entrepreneur doesn't have, because they don't have that commitment to that long-range view of the stock value and shareholder growth and that, that people expect from a company of that size. So how do you balance that then? Because that failure comes with that innovation push as a risk that you just accept and you personally seem okay with. But how does the company embrace that?
Well, like, I mean, I was to bring it back to the company Comcast. It is, I mean, I think it's incredibly well run. To be well run, you have to be very much talent first. I mean, you've got to take care of your talent. And so, underneath all the risk and the grit and the prospects of failure of whatever I'm working on, it's a company that's going to bet on its talent. And it may not work out. I mean, you never know. It's not going to work out. But these leaders will bet on their talent. They'll get their talent in the right positions.
So when you think about that, though, there's still the possibility that, and especially mobile, because I was at T-Mobile and, struggling in the Sprint AT&T acquisition cycles. It's a moving target. Right. And so no matter your best laid plans, right, the people around you in that space could have changed the game. So what was the hedge against this not working?
Like all these projects I work on, all these big new things, we can fold up shop and I won't go into all of them, but yeah, not all the things I worked on worked. But those two you mentioned, those did work. Those after really multiple years of going at it, they worked. But some things did not. I worked on an endeavor, a venture, and we folded it. I won't get into the specifics of it. And someone very senior called me up and said, "Hey, we're going to fold this initiative. I want you to go work on something else. Let's figure out what that is." That's the kind of place it is. They don't want to be part of just something that could fail, right? And they're unpredictable about what happens, or they just don't like the feeling of failure itself, or in many cases they don't like. There's two parts of it, Leslie. There's the ambiguity of it, which has discomfort. There's discomfort in the ambiguity. Like, what is this thing? Like when we started mobile, it was a clean slate. Like, what is it? What is this product that's going to go compete in a space with three big players, right? What is it? It has to be a reason for it to exist. So that has to be formed. So there's the ambiguity, and a lot of folks don't like that ambiguity. They want more, I understand this is going to work. We looked at the data and there's, there's a fallout in this part of the flow and this will solve that fallout. That's more predictable versus let's start with a clean slate and figure out whether we can create something new. And the ambiguity is one part that I think weeds a lot of folks out of that. And the second part, they're just obstacles. And to be honest, I mean, they're antibodies in any big company. Comcast is a very sort of cordial company, but when you have an idea and you're pursuing something that by its nature, if it's a new idea, it challenges the way the company's structured, right? It challenges projects that are in formation, right? All those things, and the antibodies come at you, and you have to be willing to, and that's just another example, be willing to go through and persist through those antibodies until this thing really gets traction and the company's behind it.
One of the other things I hear you say in the way you tell about the various stories that you've shared around this one worked and this one didn't, this one closed up shop and this one took a couple years to go. It sounds to me, not only do you have to have some resilience and not take any of that personally, if this one shuts down or this one keeps going, or they give it a couple more years to have a runway to go, you seem to be much more adaptable to that personally, right? And so I think sometimes when somebody comes up with an idea or feels married to an idea that feels innovative and a company wants to shut it down, they take it personally. And I don't hear that in the way you describe those stories. It seems like the successes you're humble about as much as you don't feel guilty over the failure. In that way you talk about them, they seem like they're all part of the journey and that you're okay with experiencing both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, I think there's definitely adaptability. That's a good point, Leslie. You need to adapt to what you're learning and what's happening. But more so, it's being able to kind of withstand the discomfort of it, right? It's not fun in many parts of it. The rewards are amazing, but it's just not fun. You wake up many days, you're like, ooh, this problem, this problem, this problem.
Yeah, totally. I relate to that when, and I launched the T-Mobile G1, the first Android phone back in the day, and Google was our partner. Every Friday I had a call with the team at Google and I was upbraided for being a dumb carrier. It was the price of taking the phone to market, right? That I had to put up with that. And so there are days where those are the days you're going to have in a big company. And it wasn't anybody in the company's fault, except that was our partnership. And certainly Google at the time felt they were more of a compelling brand than T-Mobile was. And so they felt we weren't keeping up. And so you take that up rating as if it's about you personally, and then you never could come back to work the next day,
Yeah, that's a good
right?
example. Yeah.
Right.
I didn't realize you worked on the Android phone.
It was a real education, not just in the future of mobility and, the internet access that had to happen in order for smartphones to really become what we all wanted them to become. But it was also such an interesting power dynamic in partnerships, right? I think that was something I would never have understood except experiencing it firsthand. And I think this is another kind of leads me to another question I have. As you want to empower your teams, innovate and to question how things work and to live in the ambiguity, what do you see are the essential features of a culture that you need to support and build over time to ensure that the teams sort of model your comfort with that discomfort?
I think you can have a culture of like big ideas, right? And big ideas, and also pushing big ideas. I think it starts with that, because if you're doing that, it creates discomfort, because these ideas, right? There's tons of ambiguity, and we have to go change how we work to go pursue those ideas. So bigger ideas, right? They create permission for others to have ideas, and it also creates normalcy around the discomfort which exists. Without that leadership driving the big ideas, companies seek comfort. And the comfort's in the predictability. And I can come in every day, I can look at my analytics dashboards, I can see a problem, I can go attack that problem, right? That's not like doing new things, right? That's comfortable. So I guess the short answer is the leadership, and me as a leader. I have to come in every day and push big ideas.
You model that behavior, and then you start to see now ideas coming from all corners of the business, which is a plus. But then you also see this flood of ideas that are coming potentially from AI and generative AI coming up with its own ideas for certain things that maybe fuel even more thought around what should be explored. How do you know which are the ideas worth chasing? How do you teach the team, not to chase every shiny object, but to focus on what's the core of a big idea that matters, or how to understand when to pull back on an idea or to table it for now versus when to pursue it?
It has to start with a strong vision. Gotta have that vision. Without it, AI can't create that vision for you. When you provide that vision as a prompt, it can help guide you along, but you gotta have a strong vision. And that vision is something that's, it transcends like what you're currently doing. It transcends what's obvious. And you got to get folks on board with that vision. And then, lots of ideas and hypotheses can hang off that, right? We can get AI helping us do it. But if you don't have that, it really goes off the rails. And what ends up happening is these ideas goes off the rails because they're not grounded in something. And then ultimately we fall back to like what I call like the optimization machine. Like we can do only the things that are so obvious, right? And we can do only those things, but over time, your company goes away. I think Jeff Bezos may have said that. You only do the obvious things.
You're pointing out, right, is this appetite, right, for change is not a new thing or a thing that's feared within your organization or within your team specifically, right? The appetite for change really has to fuel the ability to make these big, bold moves, right?
Yeah, I mean, these awesome companies. I mean, Meta, they've got a great vision. Google's got a great vision. They're grounded by something bigger, and the ideas hang off that, and people are pushing towards that. So that to me, that's the first thing that has to happen. And I try to be an agent for driving vision. And you have to push and evangelize and get alignment, get folks swimming towards that.
So how do you see the integration of AI into the product teams really aiding in this mindset or challenging the mindset that you want to bring to the product teams? Is this is something that is being deployed in a way that really people feel comfortable experimenting and exploring, or is there this cautious optimism? Describe just how a new emerging technology like this, it could be transformational. How do you manage something like this through the team? And what do you see changing as a result of it?
Yeah, like I said, I think you start with a strong vision. It's a higher order thing, and then we start to form hypotheses that stem off of this. And AI is it's incredible how it can help us, like basically shape and form and validate hypotheses that form. Vision is kind of durable. Hypotheses, they can kind of come and go, and some of them can be validated. But I'm really excited about using AI to much more quickly kind of take an idea, take hypotheses, and validate it. Right, and some of them today it takes us 2 years to really validate a big hypothesis, and maybe AI can shorten that to weeks. In some case, today it takes weeks to go through and that and at least de-risk the idea, and maybe that can happen in a few hours, right? Right, it can happen. We can form an hypothesis, we can test it. In many cases, AI can help us test that thing. We can understand its feasibility. AI can help us do that. So I'm really interested in the product role becoming much more focused on what it really should be, which is we have a vision, we have sort of a set of market needs, and let's go focus on what are the ideas and form and test those hypotheses.
And so are you seeing this rapid prototyping, vibe coding, more people putting stuff out there and bringing more ideas to a place where they can be validated? Or is it still sort of a methodical approach to having a case where AI is actually driving the business and then pursuing that? How do you see people kind of attacking what's possible?
I mean, like I said, AI can participate in the formation of the ideas and hypotheses, right? And then we have to select them. I mean, we have to, I think it's certainly at this point, we have to select those ideas, and then it can help us form them, it can help us select them. We have to be in the driver's seat on this, right? We're the ones that understand the vision. We see the bigger picture well and how things fit together. So we need to be in that, and we'll let it, drive as much as it can with us being the driver's seat. It should produce as much as it can. We can vibe code a prototype. We can, and certainly AI can code the whole thing. AI can act like, users in a usability study. I mean, it could do all those things, but the piece it doesn't do well is the larger system and the overarching strategy, how things are going to hang together, and what your vision is. That's what we have to make sure is intact.
You're listening to What If with Leslie Grandy. If you want to activate your imagination and build your creative muscles, I've put together some free resources, including webinars, downloadable content, bonus book content, and even a GPT to help you achieve your goals. Access these free tools to start asking what if today at lesliegrandy.com/resources. So when you think about the changing skills in the workforce as more AI natives sort of enter the workplace, more people who are more comfortable with leveraging and deploying it even in their personal lives and then moving forward and having ideas for what to do in work. Do you see roles changing? Do you see how work gets approached and done changing dramatically? Or do you think it's going to be incremental pivots as this new workforce becomes more AI native?
Oh, I mean, for sure. Roles change. A lot of the roles in the work that we all do is kind of formed around the capabilities that we have today. I do see there's a skill set which is like really understanding the business well and your business strategy and the market well. There's that skill set. Call it a product person if you want. There's a skill set of understanding humans and how they interact with things. You can call that design, but that's a skill set that has to be learned. And there's a skill set of really operating a piece of software, whether the coding is happening by an agent or by a person. I mean that software is a system, and it has to have scale, it has to have reliability, it has to sit in production. So you have these skills these needs that are there, and the way they work together. I mean, today the product management function, which wasn't even around when I started my career, it sort of like starts with the customer need, and it backs into the technology as far as it needs to get to the right outcome. But what's happened today is like product managers are down speccing all kinds of things, lots of user stories and lots of specs are down and deep in this delivery. So I think a lot of that's going to go away. But I think those three things still sit there, and the need for someone to understand the business context, be accountable for the outcome, that's there, and we'll back in, to the technology based on, what AI can and can't do. Well,
it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine who was also a product leader and executive at large companies, and his perspective is that there's going to be people who are builders. And builders will need to understand a combination of the things that you described, what product people do, what design people do, and what engineers need to do. And that there's this potential new role where that building is the human aspect of what AI actually can produce. And that in that expertise is a combination of all of those expertise. Does that sound radical to you, or does that sound plausible as the evolution of what you just described?
Well, that seems like that's an interesting idea. I mean, ultimately, you have sort of an AI native skill that can build leveraging AI tools, but that fundamentally isn't what like product managers are accountable for today. They're accountable for the business outcome of it. That's the role that they have. So maybe product managers don't do the building, right? They're more about what is the idea and testing the hypothesis and making sure that what is being built, right, is getting to outcomes. But I think the building is a thing now today. A lot of the building is happening certainly by software engineers with designers in there. Most of the building work is software engineers, and but I think that sounds right. But what is product managers, what we do is not that fundamentally. It's the work that sits ahead of that.
The customer facing customer
Yeah. We're
and
back
business.
into making sure what is built is the right thing, right? It serves the right. It has the right role in this in a larger strategy of how things fit together. It serves a market need, right? Has willingness to pay.
Yeah, I was talking to another product leader who made the point that AI might help you find product market fit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a product your company should be the one to bring to market, or your company should produce it the way your company would. And that's a risk with AI, is that the data would tell us it's okay to bill it, but that things like the brand or the cost of delivering it may not be factored into that product market fit decision. And so I think that kind of supports what you're saying around the business aspect of it, not just it can be built and someone would buy it even.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I can see AI having that pitfall because, again, it doesn't have the strategic context, it doesn't know how you want things to fit together to create something unique, a unique brand or a unique thing in the market. It doesn't know those things. Maybe someday it does. But yeah, that is right. Particularly, I mean, you brought up a good point. There are lots of ideas that are just great ideas, but they may not be a good idea for your brand or for what you're good at.
That may explain why Comcast stuck with mobile, right? Because they're even though there were these large competitors, it's a huge fit with the brand, right? Where that is centered on connectivity, not just on entertainment or on the internet, right? If you redefine the space as a connectivity space, it makes sense that that product fits within the brand.
Totally. It wasn't always like that because remember, mobile was born out of voice, right? It was basically a voice network. And I mean, Comcast and the cable companies weren't in the voice space. And so you had a whole network that was formed, in the 90s around voice. The cable network started in video and then moved over to data. But to me, the moment where it's like, wait a second, yes, these spaces are converging, it makes a ton of sense, is basically the iPhone. When the iPhone was created, all of a sudden we have two networks delivering data to the same device, right, with the same screen, right? Customer doesn't. Is this a voice network? Is this a cellular network? Is it a Wi-Fi network? They don't even know the difference in many cases. So that was a convergence point for these spaces. Now, even for years after the iPhone, the convergence of these two spaces didn't happen. It started to happen, obviously, in more recent years. But totally, yeah.
I want to ask you. You talked a little bit about failure and not everything works and the importance of resilience. If you look back on your career, what misjudgment or mistake or failure do you think you learned the most from?
We had, you mentioned this company StreamSage, which I ran. We started that, and we went to build a product, right, towards the vision, and we built kind of the 1.0 version of that product, and it was terrible. It just wasn't performing well. But I'll tell you, out of doing that first product, we knew exactly what to build the second time around. First one was a flop. It didn't work. It never really I don't think it even reached any form of production. Second time around, we knew how to build this thing. We understand the customer problem better. And second time around, it worked. The product was great. The company launched the product. So, I mean, from that, I mean, I think I learned to have patience with this, right? If you're going to take on a big idea, it's you can go. You want to learn as inexpensively as you can, but if the bigger the idea, I mean, the more time it's going to take to get it right. And so, by the way, there's a lot of anxiety that I had out of that. Then mobile came around. We started working on mobile, and we pursued this more in the form of we had an earlier version of this thing, and we worked at it, massaged it, and then there was a point in time where we're like, okay, let's scrap this thing. We know what to build, or we think we have more confidence in what to build. So it just, out of that first exercise, I just got comfortable with developing an idea, not getting it right the first time, having patience with it. And I mean, I still, kind of keep that in the way I work today.
Where do you think you misread the situation? Was it in customer insights? Was it in data insights? Like, for you to consider that one so valuable in learning and making the pivot to a more successful product, in retrospect, what do you think you got wrong about it? Like, what aspect of it made it less likely to succeed that you were able to then go ahead and fix?
What didn't change is like the problem we're trying to solve, but the solution to that, we got it wrong. And I think we scoped it the wrong way. We architected that was my fault as sort of the head of this thing, just scoping it the wrong way. Like, how do we break that problem into things to go solve for? We scoped it the wrong way, and then we even architected that whole thing the wrong way, and it didn't perform well. It was just a bad product the first time around. But then we learned so much out of we really learned so much. And then I figured out how to scope it right. My engineering lead really understood kind of how to architect it. And the second time around, we got it right. But you learn, I mean, you learn that process of doing something and what it really takes to take on a big idea. And that's just normal, right?
Again, I think sometimes the big idea has a hard time being diced into smaller ideas you can deliver. And sometimes those bites that you take send you off in the wrong direction, right? Like, oh, here's our MVP, but it doesn't tell us what we need to know, for example.
Exactly. And then that's scoping it. Like, how do you take a big idea and start to scope it? Our MVP was the wrong MVP. It was defined the wrong way, and it was architected the wrong way. And the second time we got it right.
And I think that's a really common trap product teams fall into, right? Is they got their handle on the problem, but they can't see the steps, the order of things that really will help them propel the idea forward, right? They do take chunks. And I've seen this in a lot of agile projects where the slice you take isn't the most important slice. It's a part of the problem, but it's not the most important slice.
Yeah, people they don't take the right slice. That's normal because it's just hard to figure out where to start, how to scope it. What ends up happening is people hang on to things too long, and that's when you die. You hang on too long and honestly, I think we killed it. We stopped working on it. We said we're going to start over again. We had that moment, and as it turns out, we probably had just a few months longer before this organization, this venture would have been sort of like dissolved. And so had we not made that call, we'd have pushed all that out, and all that you said at the beginning wouldn't exist. So we trashed it and we started over. We took our learnings, we took our medicine and we got going again.
Yeah, that's awesome. One other little area I want to explore. I'm fascinated. I've seen you write about moral leadership, and I'm really interested in understanding what it takes to be a leader that's moral now that there's AI that's really testing a lot of ethical boundaries and a lot of ownership boundaries and agency boundaries for employees. How do you see being a moral leader, not just a creative leader, an innovative leader, but a moral leader in this transformation age with AI?
I mean, you have to have a sense for what's right and wrong, right? And a team builds that sense, right? And there's obvious things around treating people, but you got to build that strong sense. And then the team operates based on that understanding of what's wrong and right, and then you have that checkpoints. Let's look at what we have and let's make sure it's that. AI is definitely, we need some guardrails around it, right? We need checkpoints, we need guardrails, we need human in the loop. We have to figure all this out. We can't let it just go, right? So yeah, I think we're all trying to figure this out. But this strong sense of what's right is important, and in all the products you build and the things you go do.
And what does that look like for not just a leader of teams and employees, but for you to be a moral leader for the brand and for your customers? What does that mean in practice? How does that help you as a leader propel your business forward too?
Well, I mean, morally, that's a broad term, by the way.
Right. And I want to hear your sort of.
I'm just thinking on the fly. It's a very broad term, but you have objectives at what you want in your product, and that's part of it, right? We want to support folks that have accessibility needs, right? That's just one example, which, by the way, we put a lot of thought into on our products, and we have guidance that goes into the products up front, and then we evaluate the product on the backside or what we're building against those principles before we launch something. That's just one example that we have, but that we need principles on the front side on how we're going to work, and on the backside we need a sort of human in the loop. We need a human in the loop. We need a checkpoint to make sure the product is aligned with those principles. I mean, I'm very big on my team on principles. I mean, it's just, before we jump in, let's get principles in a framework. Everything can change, but the principles are rock solid.
And does your team have a sense of like their cultural tenets, the ways of working, the behaviors and the mindsets that are expected of them for not just performance reviews, but also for team success?
I'd say we're okay at that. We do write down like culture, who we want to be. But Leslie, as you know, culture is not what you write down; it's the behaviors you see. And so we hope the behaviors are aligned with that. But it's writing it down. It's demonstrating those behaviors all the time. But the real culture is what you're seeing, and I think we're pretty good at that, but not perfect. I mean, for one thing, one cultural aspect that is super important to me, is, we discussed this earlier, is being bold, big ideas. Let's not run away from them because they challenge things, or they challenge organizations, or they challenge the status quo, or they challenge our roles. Let's keep at those things, big bold ideas, and let's not just do that within our team because we operate in this bigger company. Let's evangelize. Let's push. Let's lead. Let's lead those big ideas across the company, and not wait for the ideas to sort of like, come on to us. I think we have that. So that's a cultural value that's near and dear to my heart.
Kind of my last question. What if you could reimagine what it's like to be an intrapreneur inside a massive organization? If you really could create the dream experience for anyone, not just you, your personality, your trait, what things would you think need to be in place, or the mandatories that don't necessarily come with large company innovation? And I know you've been at Comcast for a long time, and so you're projecting out what's working, but that's what I'd love to see. I think, what is it that you actually imagine is what large companies need to think about in order to be successful with letting intrapreneurs disrupt the course of business?
There's two layers to think about being an intrapreneur. There's we decided there's a sort of big space we want to go into. We're going to create like a project over here, or a venture. We're going to let that venture sort of like form. That's one very obvious form of entrepreneurship, and the other form is more like in the everyday development cycles. Like how does everyone become an entrepreneur? How do teams organically, how do they innovate, not wait for some big project? And I've done the first category. I've been the sort of person they call when they're doing something new and they want to bring someone in here that they're not going to give up. But in the latter, in the job I'm in now, I spend a ton of time. How do we create teams that all of them, right, are like new ventures? And it's hard. It's hard because they can't they can't truly operate. They can't operate autonomously. They have to operate within a set of larger priorities in the company. And I spent a bunch of time on like, how do we not specify all the work for them to do? Give them the strategic guidance and let them tell us. So it's getting this. I've worked a lot on this balance of top-down strategic direction and then letting all the projects form. And as much as you can do that in a company like Comcast, I think we've done that. The teams decide what they're going to do, and they do this within a larger context. And many companies just say, "Here are all the things you're going to go do. The company's going to go do," and everyone just sort of does those things. And the great ones just describe it at a higher strategic level and let the work form around it. But that's the perfect model to me, is when you got a model where all the teams can be entrepreneurs, and we're not quite there. But you asked me what if I could create this from scratch, or if I could do this perfectly. I think it looks something like that.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I love the direction that you say you're at least pushing to figure out, because I think my experience has been segregating those intrapreneurs into innovation labs or into sort of teams that are given a different remit than every other team. When it is one of those situations that when something comes out of those groups, to use your phrase, the antibodies come out, and it's harder for the main organization to internalize and ingest. And so I love the direction that you're proposing, because I think it's intended to avoid that type of big company, not invented here, even though it was invented in an organization that is employed by our company. It does have that risk that it's not fully integrated and internalized as the direction the business should go. So I love your answer. I think that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you giving me time today. Is there anything else that you'd like the audience to know about what you're working on, or what new products that you're really proud of that your team has launched? I just want to give you an opportunity, since you gave so much of your time today to us, to do a little pitch if there's something you want to share.
I guess I'll use this as a plug. We spend a lot of time on Wi-Fi, and I think we are the leaders in Wi-Fi. In Wi-Fi in the broader sense, like the connected home, how does it work with Wi-Fi being the core of that? So there's a series of things that I won't go through that we've launched, and there's a bunch of stuff under the hood right now that we're working on. But I'm incredibly proud of the leadership we have in the space around Wi-Fi, and how we've turned Wi-Fi into an entire experience that shows up in our Xfinity app. How about that? There's my little plug.
No, that's great. That's what I wanted, and I feel like what you choose is a indication, given your background and what you like to work on, is that you believe there's a good vision for it, even not just being great today, but where it's going to continue to evolve to be an innovative platform for Comcast.
I think we have a very strong vision.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of execution ahead, but we've got a very strong vision.
Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It was great to have you here and get your perspective, Randall. Thanks so much.
Leslie, it's great to spend time with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You've been listening to What If with Leslie Grandy. If you want to learn more about creative leadership in the age of generative AI, subscribe to my Substack at lesliegrandy.substack.com.